Hello and welcome back to another episode of Accountants Are Sexy, Change My Mind. Today we have a very sexy man with us, not an accountant, but I would like to introduce you to Jim Holland from Carma. Now, if you went to Accountex, you might have noticed some trees walking around the event. Jim wasn't one of those trees, but he's very closely attached to them. So welcome to the show, Jim. I'm interested in if I can get my words out. I can't wait for you to tell people what this is all about.
Yeah, well, absolutely wonderful to be here, Captain Kelly. Delighted to be on the show. And I just want to say, before I introduce myself, I'd made a hit list of people I wanted to speak to at that show, and you were number one. Accountancy Pirates. We had to come and find you, especially as we'll go on to learn that I have got a nautical background, and I thought, right, I need to seek out Accountancy Pirates and take some doubloons off them. So I'm Jim Holland. Oh, Kelly, go on.
No, I was going to say I don't want to disappoint you. I don't have a nautical background at all.
Well, this is when the confusion came in, when I did a little bit more research and scratched beneath the surface, but found that you were a landlocked landlubber from the West Midlands. But there you go. I still wasn't disappointed in the slightest.
Bless you. Right, go on. Tell people what you do, and where you come from.
Okay. Oh, it's like being on blind date. So here we go, Scylla. So at Carma, we make social and environmental impact, both simple and affordable. And we do that by planting trees. We plant trees overseas with some of the most impoverished communities in the world. And we plant trees here in the UK, employing veterans and service leavers, providing them with positive pathways to employment through nature-based tasks.
So that in itself is incredible. I love companies that have social ethos. The whole reason that we're called Accounting Pirates is the book Be More Pirate is about creating social ethos within your own business and lifting everybody up together. So when you came over, you really struck a chord, and I was very excited when Caroline first announced that you guys were going to be partnered with Accountex. So planting trees sounds dead easy, but why has that come about in the first place? Like, where is the connection between planting trees and service people?
Well, yeah, if we go right back into my history, I live in Newbury in West Berkshire, but you can probably tell I haven't got an accent from West Berkshire. I'm in Barnsley in South Yorkshire. And when I left school with 3 very poor O levels back in 1987, and there was very little opportunity in Barnsley. And after 2 years of scrabbling around, trying to earn a living, trying to create a niche, I wasn't getting anywhere. So I joined the Royal Navy and jumped on a train one Monday morning down to Plymouth. And 12 wonderful years traveling the world, getting upskilled. I left with a degree in computing, HND in electronic engineering, and a wealth of people skills. And I played a lot of rugby, ran Brickwood's field gun 4 times, loved it. But unfortunately, I got injured and I've got a lower back problem. And I got pensioned out, medically discharged at the tender age of 30. And of course, wow. I washed back up in Barnsley, and I always said the best decision I ever made was leaving Barnsley during the Royal Navy. The worst decision I ever made was going back, and I really struggled. I really struggled because when you leave the forces overnight, you lose 3 things: your forces family, your purpose, and your identity. Yeah. So there I am, back in Barnsley, really well qualified, a pocket full of money. I sold a house on the south coast, moved back up to the depressed north, and I was quids in, but emotionally I was struggling, and I found resettlement extremely difficult. And I bought a town centre pub. I probably drunk too much Pusser's rum and had too much of a good time, and it was an economic disaster. And within 4 years, I was really struggling, Kelly. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I was roofing at the time, and one of my old bosses from the Navy actually rang me up and said, "Oh, just ringing up to make sure how you're getting on, Jim. And I'm like, well, to be honest, Steve, I'm really struggling. I went, really? I went, yeah. He said, well, look, I'm at Vodafone. HQ's in Newbury. You've got a degree in computing. My boss is recruiting for a Unix engineer. Why don't you send me a CV and I'll get him to call you? He said, it might be worth you doing a little bit of research. I said, mate, I'll send you it straight away. Jumped on my computer, sent Steve my CV. Within 10 minutes, his boss had rung me, a guy called Michael O'Connor. And he said, Jim, I've just read the CV. It's brilliant. I'm recruiting at the minute. I'm looking for a Unix engineer. What do you know about Unix? And I went, well, I'm not going to lie to you, Mike. I've just Googled it. There's 48 commands. How difficult can it be?
Sounds easy.
And he just started laughing. He said, that's brilliant. He said, yeah, I didn't expect that answer, but thanks for the candor. And he said, well, look, I had a bit of a conversation with him. 2 days later, I was down in Newbury having an interview, meeting his team, and then, cut long story short, 3 weeks later, September 2006, I joined Vodafone, and that was my resettlement, Kelly.
Yeah.
A big organisation, all about the people, all about very customer centric at the time, all about passion and values, and with a real clear mission. And I excelled in the environment, working with other people and getting shit done. Is what. And when I left Mike's team 18 months later for a promotion, I still wasn't any good at Unix. but I'd brought a lot more to the table, and he said, look, you were never going to be the best engineer, but this was the right place for you. And I'm eternally grateful to Mike. He was a great guy. And I had eight wonderful years at Vodafone. And that was my resettlement. I met my wife, Sally, there. We've now got 4 daughters, so Vodafone's got a lot to answer for. Settled in Newbury, and I'd left Vodafone, went to Sky, had 2.5 years at Sky, up in Oxley, then left Sky and went to Stansted Airport as a head of commercial. Joined there in 2017, and the airport that was going to grow and grow and grow, the UK's 4th largest airport, we're trying to get to 3rd, and expansion plans and everything was going swimmingly, of course, until COVID hit.
Yeah.
And had a massive impact on the aviation industry. I was very quickly furloughed for 6 months, here in what I call the Legend Suite, because of the picture behind me, not me. And I sat here and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What? And I've had such a wonderful life. You know, that period of resettlement wasn't great, but the rest of it, in the Navy, my corporate career had been a raging success. I'm thinking, right, what haven't I done? And tragically, 13 years ago, I lost a friend on his resettlement path, a guy called Nige Burkitt, to suicide. He just, 2 months into leaving the Navy, he took his own life. And I'd played rugby league with Nige. I spent a lot of time with us. We were on an apprenticeship together. And I love the guy, and losing him was a massive loss. I went to the funeral up in Wigan, and it was tough, really tough. And I didn't stay for the wake, which I regretted later, because I could have done with that release. And we wanted to do more, and I got together with a few teammates during furlough, and we created an organisation. We waited for charitable status called In Touch, Royal Navy Rugby League. And In Touch is built on 3 pillars: reset, reconnect, and relive. Reset's all about helping people on that transition journey from the force to civilian street, benefiting from the experience we've all got now as senior leavers, I suppose. Reconnect, reaching out and talking to your old teammates, making sure they're all right and they're coping. And relive, getting together once or twice a year, having a few beers and a meal, and remembering how good you were 25 years ago. And we started playing rugby again, but only in a tertiary capacity. It's Masters Rugby League, so we're not smashing 10 bells out of each other. But the reason I'm telling you all that, Kelly, is through that reconnection process. I reconnected with Dr. Andrew Steele, who's the Royal Navy Rugby League captain when I played. He left the Navy before me 18 years ago, and he moved out to Bangkok, settled in Southeast Asia, and started the Plant a Tree Today Foundation.
Okay.
For the last 18 years, he's planted over 3.5 million trees.
Good boy.
And I'm talking to him on a Zoom call. I'm like, right, so where are you? Well, he's still planting trees. He said, well, yeah, but I moved from Bangkok to back to Hull. I'm like, Andy, no one moves from Bangkok to Hull. Why would you do that?
That is the first question that pops into your mind, isn't it? Why?
Absolutely. I mean, they only invented Hull to make Barnsley look like Las Vegas. And yeah, such a great guy. And he said, well, look, he said, you won't know this. Never forget saying this. You won't know this, but there's a real issue with people leaving the armed forces. He said 10% of them don't get work straight away. I said, the ones who do within 18 months, a further 15% need a hand up, not an handout, and a hand up. He said, so I'm working with Armed Forces Resettlement, and I've started a company that sits underneath the Plant a Tree Today Foundation called the Green Task Force. And what the Green Task Force does is provide positive pathways for veterans and service leavers to employment through nature-based tasks. I'm like, wow. Said some of the veterans have got PTSD and we treat them through nature-based therapy. Said everyone as a bare minimum gets a vocational qualification in horticulture. Then we work with recruitment companies to get them back on the employment ladder when they've got a backstory and a backstop really in terms of emotional and physical. Planting trees together. They do stuff like planting trees, clearing woodlands, clearing canals, litter picking invasive species, which they're all there, getting rid of bracken on hillsides in Wales and stuff like that. And when he told me all this, Kelly, I just looked at him and went, yeah, that's epic. I said, how do I get involved? And he laughed. He said, you can't plant trees, Lofty. I was there when you ate your back. I'm like, I can't plant trees. I said, but there's something in this because people, especially at the end of lockdown, people understood the importance of green spaces and the great outdoors. And I said, there's something in this. So I went away and I came up with my first company was rewards.earth. We've now Carma.earth. And so we came up with Carma, which is short for Carbon Karma. And it's just a digital platform that connects people and businesses to reforestation projects, both in the UK and around the globe. And it's all about doing good together, because doing good makes you feel good. And this is year 2 for us now, and we've had a great couple of years, with some big clients. And that's the backstory to Carma, really. So my connection.
I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. It's bringing two very worthy causes and just like sticking them together and creating gold. It's absolutely beautiful. I remember from my days in recruitment, we would have loads of service people try and get in gas engineer positions, but because they had no experience, like direct experience on particular like domestic gas or commercial gas jobs, they weren't getting picked for the jobs. So while they had all of the knowledge and they were doing it in their own environments, they weren't able to transition easily, or as easily as somebody might think. So it was heartbreaking. I remember at the time it was heartbreaking because we would get loads apply and people simply wouldn't choose them. So talk to me a little bit about your transition journey. What did you call it? A reintegration, transition?
Resettlement.
Resettlement. Your resettlement journey sounds amazing. Rough start, then you got together and you kind of settled in. That's not the same for everybody. So what's happening at the moment out there for people who are going through a tough time? What's their life like?
Yeah, and it is tough with the industry the way it is, and I'm talking to a lot of service leavers at the minute, and the problem you have when you're leaving the service, you only know one environment that you've been in a long time. One of the guys I'm working with at the minute has been in 24 years, and extremely successful guy. But you have this self-doubt about how you're going to be able to operate in a different environment. And like I said before, you've got a clear purpose and a clear identity in the armed forces. So when you leave, you feel vulnerable because you're stepping into that uncertain world. And one of the things I always say is that as employers, what you need to recognise is that these veterans, they aren't vulnerable, they're valuable. Because you know, with a veteran, that you can depend on him to turn up, or her to turn up, look smart, and do the best with very minimal instruction. And it can be difficult. I mean, when you're in the forces, everything's prescribed to you: where you're going to be, what you're going to wear, how you're going to behave, what equipment you're going to work on, and the training. But at the minute, coming out into a quite a choppy social economic climate with business as it is, it's even more daunting. So getting a job, and we're seeing people not struggle, but actually get tuned into the fact quite early. I mean, the guy I'm working with doesn't even leave until right at the end of the year, but he's really making the right noises now, and fortunately, there's a lot more mechanisms out there and communities to plug into to help people on this journey.
Yeah.
So, go on, Kelly.
I was going to say, I love the fact that you brought in the word community. It's one of the best things about the accounting space, and you probably experienced that at Accountex.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's such an amazing, friendly environment. Some great people, and the caliber of people is really, really consistent. And for me, it is all about community. We're all in this together. And one of my very first experiences in the Navy, I was on HMS Manchester. I'd only been in the Navy just over a year. We were just gearing up to go to the first Gulf War in 1991. And did a massive damage control exercise off the coast of Poland. And it was quite rough. The sea was unrelenting, and the ship was in quite a bad state after the damage control exercise. We had to do a lot of mopping up and clearing away. And I at the end of this, the fatigue, it was like 4 or 5 days in, and I'm pulling this great big damage control cable along this long passageway, and it was really tight. And all of a sudden, it got really light. And I looked behind me, and there's this massive leading hand. He picked up the end of the cable and he was walking towards me. And this guy got muscles on muscles on muscles. Put the cable away. And he said, "Why didn't you ask for help?" And I said, "Have you seen yourself?" I said, "Look at the size of you. I'm absolutely petrified of you." And he put his hand on my arm and he looked at me. He said, "We're here to help one another, not to stick one another up." And I took that through my entire naval career. It was such a lesson early on in life, and I'll never forget that moment. It was fantastic, and that community, and it
You're not a small bloke yourself, Jim. So I mean, he must have been chunky.
Yeah, he was. I was a lot smaller at the time. I was 19.
Oh, bless. Oh,
yeah. Okay.
Oh, so the charity's been set up. Is it a charity, first of all? I'm saying it's a charity, but I don't know if it is.
Carma is profit for purpose.
Profit for purpose.
Well in excess of 50% of what we take goes back into social and environmental projects in the UK and abroad.
So the organisation that was set up, you employ veterans and service leavers, and you also mentioned earlier that you give them extra help, like you were talking about their mental health by I can't remember the words you used now. You support their mental health by getting them involved so they go out and actually do things. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so our fulfillment partners, so we've got two Eden Reforestation Projects who work with communities all around the world, and then in the UK it's the Green Task Force. So we effectively give the Green Task Force work, and the Green Task Force is made up of veterans and service leavers. Some of them have got PTSD, and they treat them through nature-based therapy. Because being outdoors, being task-driven, being purpose-driven, and sharing that with your colleagues and people, it just leads to people opening up. So people who would normally be closed, they're indoors, quite guarded with the conversations. If you're out working with your hands and doing stuff, they can open up, and it's nature-based therapy. It's just a great way to just settle the mind, make people feel at ease, and that shared purpose. And some of the best days I've ever had in my life, and I've had some good ones, have been out planting with veterans and corporates who just, you have a connection, and that connection is threefold. It's with nature, it's with the people you're doing it with, and with yourself. There's quite a spiritual thing going on there when you're out planting, and it's really tangible and really fulfilling. We love it.
I would imagine you get to the end of the day and you just feel satisfied. Like, I've done a good job. I've spoken to some good people. We've impacted the world in a good way today.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got a great case study on the website. A day we did with Go Cardless, the Pavement Gateway people. That absolutely, we planted 5,000 trees with them on that day. Wonderful day. Everyone turned up a little bit pensive, shall we say, at 9 o'clock with a cup of Starbucks coffee in hand, the brief, and then within an hour, the difference it made to the landscape and all the barriers, the preconceived barriers between each other had dissipated. They're in it together. We broke at lunchtime. Went to Hornsea, fish and chips, sat on the seawall eating fish and chips. A sea lion came swimming past. And I'll never forget Celine saying, "Jim, I didn't think today could be any more perfect." And I know, and I jokingly said, "That's not really a sea lion. It's a sailor in a sea lion mask that we put on."
Planted it earlier, so just to come along.
but it's just a magical day, and it's tangible. It's real. And people often talk to me about greenwashing. I'm like, well, look, we don't greenwash. We put trees in the ground, when we put smiles on people's faces, and we give companies the opportunity to show their customers and their people that they care. So that's what it's all about.
So tell me then, so you go into companies like Go Cardless and work with their staff. Their staff support you for the day, as well as the veterans and the Green Task Force within the Green Task Force.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's one of our hero packages, as it were, is corporate tree planting. So come on, don't just walk the walk and sign a load of money off and say, yeah, we're carbon neutral. Get your people involved. Get them out there in the wide open spaces, planting trees with veterans and connecting with nature and each other, and the mental health benefits as well as the social benefits of giving back to the veterans, and the net biodiversity gain. You're creating a new habitat for all those creatures, and people give the land quite willingly to get trees planted on it, which is just a wonderful thing to do.
So when you go into these companies and you kind of pitch the idea to them, what would make these larger corporate companies say, yeah, let's go with you guys and let's have our staff work with you, as opposed to other people who come in and pitch to kind of tick their boxes? Because that's what people initially think. It's a tick box exercise.
That's right. And a lot of people mistake us just for being a carbon offsetting piece. But go right back to the beginning. Our North Star is social and environmental impact. And I always say, when you plant a tree, 3 wonderful things happen. First of all, you employ someone to do it. And the social impact of employing someone, it gives them back their pride, the sense of purpose. They can put food on the table, send the children to school, feel like that sense of belonging, and feel a sense of achievement. Then you put the tree in the ground, you get instantly net biodiversity gain. That tree is going to be there for 99 years plus, really making a massive impact to the local fauna and flora, and it becomes a natural habitat of birds, voles, rabbits, you name it, they're all in there. And then finally, and almost as a wonderful intended consequence, it absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere. So everybody wins. You've got the complete value chain. And we're planting thousands of trees. People love us. What makes us stand out? Well, we're working with veterans in the UK. We're working with impoverished communities all over the world. We're not just another vanilla off-the-shelf carbon offsetting scheme. We have digitalized it, so we've got tricks up our sleeve, tools that people can use to shout about the impact they're making. A digital dashboard on your company website. It says how many trees you planted, how many work days that's created. So you get your social impact in there. And over time, how much CO2 that will remove, absorb, call it what you want. We're not an offsetting company. We didn't set out to be an offsetting company. We've looked into it. Yeah, exactly. It's just a great consequence of what we do.
I love it. So you obviously, the corporate clients understand that partnership. How can smaller businesses get involved and support you? If this is something that is dear to their heart, what can they do?
Well, we're geared up so that any size of business can use us. I mean, you can join our platform for as little as £3.99 a month and plant trees every single month. We plant 12 trees every month for £3.99 a month. And then you get bonus trees planted in the UK, employing veterans. You get to use the dashboard. So, and you can customize your package. I mean, our top package is £15.99, but we've got other people who opt to spend £200, £500, £800 every month just to give back to people and planet and demonstrate they're doing it. Other businesses, we've got a product called Tree Commerce. So every time you offer a good or service or send an invoice, you can plant a tree for as little as 25p. So because doing good makes you feel good and it makes your customers feel good. You plant a tree on their behalf every time you do a tax return. Nobody likes paying for the tax return. I don't know which I begrudge the most, paying for my tax return or paying my tax. I think it's probably paying my tax, to be honest. But it's like,
I definitely don't mind paying for my tax return to be done because otherwise it would just boggle my brain. So
yeah, well, yeah, good point. But it is like a double sucker punch, isn't it? Yeah, you just charge me all this money to tell me how much money I owe. What I'm saying is, you could make your customers feel good in the accountancy world by every time you sell an invoice, win a new client, or do a great piece of business, celebrate it by planting a tree or lots of trees. And this is what some of the companies, construction companies, very keen to give back to people and planet to commemorate some of the big projects they're doing. Just recently worked with Morgan Sindel in Wales and Cass UK, who came together to plant 2,000 trees in Abergavenny. That was a wonderful day. And then you get two companies coming together to do something great. So you're consolidating that relationship, giving back, and everyone felt great at the end of it. And of course, you get all the less vanilla stuff to put on your social media, because everyone posts about all the awards they've won, that they've bought. But this is real. This is really giving back, and it means something.
Yeah, and this is not greenwashing and virtue signaling. If it's something you believe in and it's something that you actually want to do and contribute with. I think greenwashing is when you just do the tick box exercises and you're just like, oh yeah, we'll do that. Carbon offsetting done. Yeah, it's totally done. But if you go and get your boots dirty, that's not greenwashing. And if you actually go and put this on your invoices, which is a brilliant idea, by the way, Jim. Like celebrating bills going out is a wonderful idea. Like let's make that fun. And you can pass that on to your clients as well. So it doesn't just have to be the accountant. It's like you could talk to your entire client base about how they could feel better sending invoices out. Like that would be magical.
Exactly. And everyone can demonstrate their impact by having a dashboard on the website that just ticks up every time you buy three. Guess what?
Yeah. You could celebrate it collectively as well. Like if you did an annual report with your clients to say how much CO2 have we eliminated this year together collectively. Now that's something pretty special. Also, once again, going back to your original point, amazing social media content because it just spreads positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love it.
Right. Yet another idea, Kelly. I'm going to write it down as I do.
You write that down. But while you're writing that down, I've got one question because we're going to bring this to a close. I've got two questions. First of all, where do people go to find out more about this?
So straight to our website. I've been told to stop saying www. So I'm not going to. It's Carma.
That's good.
I knew you'd be pleased with that. It's Carma.earth, and that's Carma. Don't know if you can see my badge. Carma with a C.
Carma with a C.
Carma.earth. It's short for Carbon Karma.
Carbon Karma. So I will put your links on the web, on the podcast, so people can find you. I will direct people there. I have one final question for you, though, Jim.
I'm ready.
What's the sexiest thing about accountants?
Wow, what is the sexiest thing around? Well, I think it's their innate ability not to be put off by numbers and spreadsheets and the drudgery that, to me, it just, anyone who embraces that the mashup of what I throw them and say, can you turn this into something that resembles a report that I could file? That's what's sexy. Having the ability to turn the mess that's in my mind into something that's meaningful. I think that's quite sexy.
I think so too. So thank you very much. That's all we've got time for. This Carma story is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to point people to your website. I hope people go and have a look. Get involved. Get your clients involved. Let's save the world one little bit at a time. Thank you so much for joining me, Jim.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been brilliant. Cheers, Captain.